All right, guys, today I want to talk about people that are overworking. If you think about movies in the United States, typically in these like comedy movies, the plot, you're going to see a lot of plots about getting the lazy pothead to get up off his ass and work and get a work ethic. And maybe he takes over the family business when before he was just really likable and funny and like maybe women liked him and stuff, but he just didn't have that work ethic, right? So you'll see this a lot in movies, but what about the other side? Maybe you're the other side where maybe you're too much of a type A personality and you should be looking to take over traits from the type B personality. So maybe you are a workaholic and let's not make it you, but picture a person. So where's the movies where they talk about the person who is a workaholic and they are always on edge and they're very calculating and they're very efficient at work and maybe they're successful, financially and all that goes. But when it comes to being able to just take their foot off the pedal a bit and relax, smell the roses, so to speak, and enjoy time with family and invest time into the relationships, maybe that's where they lack, right? Now, I'm sure there are some movies that you could think of that are like that. I'm sure they're out there. So I'm not saying that there are no movies like that, but I'm just saying typically as a society, we tend to, that problem in society, like that, those type of people aren't really addressed that much, even though it's just as serious as an issue as the other way around. It's just doesn't really present itself as much because that person, the type A person who is a workaholic, they might have physically all the things that we value so much in society. Like, so they have the house, they have the couple of cars, they can support themselves, and which is, very, very important. But there's also the other side of the spectrum, right? Where we have to think about. Now, I'm not this person. If anything, I'm definitely the person who needs to, the person in the comedy movie where everyone tries to rally behind and get them to get a work ethic and achieve more, because that's just the way I've always been. That's my personality. So I'm that. But I think it's interesting to think about what's on the other side, So what would it look like for that person if they are trying to balance out their lives? So basically, the grass is always greener on the other side. I just butchered that, but you know what I mean. If you're an overachiever, worker, too harder, then you probably need to find ways to chill and be mindful or whatever. And if you are someone who is just super, lazy and they're good with relaxing and keeping their mind in check that ways and keeping their relationships well, maybe they need to figure out how to be more rigid and schedule things more better and show up on time, things like this. So anyways, America is kind of it's definitely a capitalist society where we value, more, getting more money, that conspicuous consumption, trying to keep up with the Joneses. And that problem is typically not something type A people have, because type A people have, have good work ethic and they just put all their energy towards that. But what does it look like to be someone in that position? So say you're living in your mansion and you have all your wealth around you and you own half the city or whatever, but there's that common trope where it's like money doesn't buy happiness. Well, those people, I don't know this from personal experience, but everyone says it's true, like I guess you never really would understand that saying if you were a poor person until you actually lived through that. So that's what everyone who has money says, right? It's very easy to, get all your wealth and your castle, and then you've made it, right? So you've made it to, to where you were aiming for. So why aren't you happy then? You have all of your wealth, you have everything you could have ever wanted, you're comfortable, you can fly around and go on trips and stuff, but you're still lacking something in life. So what would that be? So I'm thinking maybe it would be, a fruitful relationship with like a spouse, right? A partner, or maybe good quality relationships between you and your family members, or you and your employees, or maybe you just don't have peace of mind because you're always go, go, go. So you need to like take a chill pill and meditate or get some exercise or what have you, just to kind of balance out that chemical contraption that is our mind, our brain, right? We're swimming in chemicals, and you can't physically feel happiness and contentment and peace if your mind is lacking those certain chemical makeups, and you can't get those certain chemical makeups if you don't facilitate those by, like I said, exercise. You get lots of positive endorphins from having warm relationships in your life, and human contact, things like this. So what would that person need to do? I don't know. Maybe schedule some meaningful vacations, or bolster their relationships with their partners or their family, or just kind of take some time to really, it sounds kind of hippie, but it's true, to spend some time to look inward and think about what you really want intrinsically to feel whole as a person, right? So that's going to be different for everyone. It's going to look different for everyone, and you're going to get there differently for everyone. But I think that if we all just take a step back, just kind of check in with yourself, even for like maybe an hour a week or whatever, and just find out what you really want. That's not something that you can hold in your hand, something that's not a material item like a ring or a hat. And then what is it that you want to be happy? Because at the end of the day, you're getting all those things and compiling all of your jewels and wealth so that you could feel happy, right? Like that's kind of the whole goal. So you could get the girl, get the husband, so you could have a comfortable place to live, so you could get out of debt. Why are we all doing that? And I mean, obviously, so we can survive and so that we can be happy and have peace of mind. But if we get all of those things and we find ourselves not having that sanity and that peace of mind that we want, even with all of those accolades, then what are you missing? You got to figure that out. So, I mean, I'm not here to tell you what that is or how to do that. I'm not even here to say exactly that I have that figured out, right? And I think that, with things like this, it's always a moving target as well. So it may be crystal clear to you in January of 2025, but maybe, 5 years from then, 6 months from then, it's always going to be changing and evolving, because that's just the way we are as humans. The older I get, the more I realize that everything is, number one, everything is on a sliding scale, kind of a balance or a pendulum, as far as, am I hungry? Am I happy? Do I feel wealthy? Do I feel successful? Am I fit? Have I been getting enough exercise? There's always a spectrum. And obviously there's a point where we're aiming for, and we may be able to get there for a little while, but eventually we're going to have to do things to keep up on that. So even if you're like the most ultimate, ultra marathon runner, you take all your vitamins, you're doing, all of the popular things like ice baths, and you're getting the proper sleep and all this, and doing everything perfectly on paper. I mean, you may get to, first of all, there's no perfect. And second of all, you may get to where you want to be. But if you don't keep up on it, obviously it's going to slip away. And also, your ideal spot that you're aiming for is going to change over time. So, and that's not a bad thing or a good thing, but that's just the way it is. Things that you want in life, like a house that you may love in 2025, maybe 10 years from now, you want a different house, or you want a different car, or you want a different partner, or you want your fashion changes. So, this could be anything. So we have to kind of keep our ear to the railroad track, so to speak, for ourselves, and know that, because it's easy to go on autopilot and, okay, I have my 5-year plan, my 10-year plan, and you're progressing your way to get that accomplished, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? We're all supposed to progress and succeed and baby steps towards the American dream, right? Or whatever dream. But that dream does change over time. And, a lot of dreams, you'll realize that they weren't what you thought it was going to be. Sort of like maybe if you've ever met a celebrity that you just thought was the bee's knees, maybe you meet them in person and they just rubbed you the wrong way. They turned out to be rude or something like that. It just wasn't what you thought it was going to be. That may not be the best comparison, but I think you can see where I'm going. So basically, be ready for life to take you by surprise. You got to be malleable. We have to learn to be, to mold ourselves to every day to something new. We have new challenges, new blessings or whatever, gifts. But we just have to kind of roll with the punches and also change our goals as we see fit and just kind of get used to it. I think in many, many sports, think about a sport, like the best athletes or the players of these sports are the people who are the best at adapting to their opponent or adapting to the game, right? As the meta changes and all these factors change, the best players in the game or business, as times change, the best people in business adapt to changes. So I think I'll leave it there, but I just thought that was kind of what was on my mind. Let me know what you guys think, if that was valuable. Maybe there's something in your life that's relative to this that you'd want to share in the comments or something like that. But other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.